Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon, looking out at the stars. The ship moved slowly through space, searching for new worlds and strange things among the distant suns. Jake had been exploring space for 15 years, but he still felt excited every time they found something new. "Captain, we're getting some weird readings from the third moon," said Dr. Lisa Grant from her science station. She was the smartest person on the ship, always finding interesting things in the data. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she studied the numbers on her screen. Jake walked over to look at what she had found. The screen showed a small moon orbiting around a gas giant planet. The moon looked normal, but the readings showed something was not right. "What kind of readings?" Jake asked. "Energy patterns that don't match anything natural," Lisa said. "It's like there's some kind of technology down there, but it's very old. Maybe thousands of years old." Commander Ryan Brooks, the ship's security chief, came over to join them. He was a big man with careful eyes, who always thought about danger first. "Could be a trap," he said. "We don't know what's down there." Jake thought about it. They were far from Earth, in a part of space where no humans had ever been before. If there was old technology on that moon, it could be important, but Ryan was right to be careful. "Amy, try to scan the moon more carefully," Jake said to Lieutenant Amy Chun at the communications station. She was young, but very good at her job, always finding ways to make their equipment work better. Amy worked on her controls for several minutes. "I'm picking up some kind of structures under the surface," she said. "They're big, like a whole city built underground. But I'm not getting any life signs. Kevin, can we land safely?" Jake asked their engineer, Kevin Turner. Kevin knew everything about how their ship worked and could fix almost anything. Kevin looked at his readings. "The atmosphere is thin, but breathable. Gravity is about half of Earth normal. We can land, but we should be careful. Some of those energy readings are still active." Jake made his decision. "We're going down. Ryan, get your security team ready. Lisa, bring your science equipment. Amy and Kevin, you're with us too." This could be the discovery of a lifetime. The landing shuttle flew down through the thin atmosphere of the moon. The surface was rocky and gray, with no plants or water anywhere. But as they got closer, they could see strange shapes in the rock that looked like they had been made by intelligent beings. They landed near what looked like the entrance to an underground structure. The opening was carved from the rock itself, with symbols around it that none of them recognized. The symbols seemed to glow with a soft blue light. "Those symbols," Lisa said as they walked toward the entrance. "They're not like anything in our databases. This civilization is completely unknown to us." Ryan had his weapon ready, but Jake told him to keep it lowered. "We're visitors here," Jake said. "Let's try to be peaceful." They walked into the underground structure. Their lights showed long hallways carved from the rock, with more of the glowing symbols on the walls. The air was old and dusty, but it was still good to breathe. "The energy readings are getting stronger," Kevin said, looking at his scanner. "There's definitely something active deeper in here." They walked for almost an hour through the winding tunnels. The structure was huge, much bigger than they had expected. It felt like walking through an ancient library or museum, with rooms full of strange objects and more symbols everywhere. Finally, they came to a large room with a high ceiling. In the center of the room was a tall, thin figure standing very still. At first, they thought it was a statue, but then it moved. The figure was about 7 feet tall, with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. It had long arms and legs, and it wore robes that seemed to be made of the same material as the glowing symbols. When it saw them, it stepped forward slowly. "Don't move," Ryan whispered, but Jake held up his hand. The figure began to speak, but not in words. Instead, it made musical sounds and drew shapes in the air with its long fingers. The shapes glowed briefly and then faded away. "It's trying to communicate," Amy said. "But I don't understand the language." Lisa was watching carefully. "Those shapes, they look like mathematical equations. Maybe it's trying to show us numbers or formulas." Jake stepped forward slowly, keeping his hands where the figure could see them. "Hello," he said in a gentle voice. "We're from Earth. We're humans. We come in peace." The figure tilted its head, listening. Then it began to draw more shapes in the air. This time, the shapes looked like star maps and planets. "It's showing us the solar system," Lisa said excitedly. "Look, there's our sun, and there's Earth." The figure pointed to itself, and then drew a completely different star map. Then it made a sad sound, and the shapes turned dark. "I think it's trying to tell us where it came from," Jake said, "but something happened to its home." Over the next few hours, the figure slowly learned some human words. It called itself Zethka, and it was very old. It told them that it was the last of its people who was still awake. "My people," Zethka said in his strange musical voice, "we were the keepers of memory. We recorded the stories of all the peoples among the stars. But then came the great forgetting, and everyone forgot about us. Everyone except you." Jake felt a chill run down his back. "What do you mean? Everyone forgot about you?" Zethka's large eyes looked very sad. "We were erased from the memory of the galaxy. No one remembers that we ever existed. Until now. You are the first to find us in 500 years. "But why?" Lisa asked. "How could an entire species be forgotten?" "Something came," Zethka said. "Something that feeds on memory and history. It took away all knowledge of my people from every world, every mind. Only here, in this hidden place, do we still exist." Ryan stepped closer. "How many of you are left?" 847 of my people sleep in the deep chambers," Zethka said. "I have watched over them, waiting for someone to remember us, waiting for someone to help us." Jake looked at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. Here was a species that had been completely forgotten by the galaxy, and somehow humans had found them. It felt like destiny. "We'll help you," Jake said. "We'll remember you, and we'll make sure others remember you too." Zethka's eyes filled with something that looked like tears. "You would do this? For people you have never met before?" "That's what humans do," Jake said. "We protect those who need protection. We remember those who have been forgotten." For the first time in 500 years, Zethka smiled. Zethka led the human crew deeper into the underground city. The tunnels went down for miles, carved into the solid rock of the moon. The walls were covered with the glowing symbols that seemed to tell stories, though the humans could not read. "Then yet, your people built all of this?" Lisa asked as they walked. She was amazed by the size of the place. It was bigger than any human city she had ever seen. "We had many years to work," Zethka said. His voice was getting easier to understand as he learned more human words. "When we realized what was happening to us, we built this place to hide. We hoped that someday someone would find us and remember." They came to a huge room filled with tall, crystal-like containers. Each container glowed with soft light, and inside each one was a sleeping figure like Zethka. There were hundreds of them, all perfectly still. "Your people," Jake said softly. "They're all sleeping?" "Not sleeping," Zethka said. "They are in deep rest, waiting. Their bodies do not age while they wait. I have been alone, watching over them, for 500 of your years." Kevin looked at the technology that kept the sleepers safe. "This is incredible," he said. "We don't have anything like this on Earth. How does it work?" Zethka touched one of the containers gently. "We learned many things from many peoples. We were the memory keepers of the galaxy. Every species shared their knowledge with us, and we kept it safe. We learned about science and art and philosophy from 1,000 different worlds. But what happened? Amy asked. How did everyone forget about you? Zethka's expression grew dark. The Void Walker came. It is a thing of darkness that moves between the stars. It feeds on memory and knowledge. When it passes over a world, the people forget their history, their culture, their identity. And it especially likes to consume entire species from the memory of others. Ryan kept his hand near his weapon, even though there was no danger here. Is this Void Walker still out there? Yes, Zethka said, and it will return. The patterns in the stars show that it moves in great circles through the galaxy. It will come back to this part of space in perhaps 18 of your months. Lisa was studying the sleeping figures. We need to wake them up. Your people have knowledge that could help everyone, and they deserve to be awake and free. It is dangerous, Zethka warned. If we wake them, and they are discovered before they are protected, the Void Walker will sense them. It will come faster. Jake thought about this. But if we don't wake them, they'll sleep forever. That's not living. Zethka was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. You are right. We cannot hide forever. If you will help us, we will wake our people. The awakening took 3 days. Zethka knew the ancient process, but he needed help from Kevin and Amy to make the human and Viridian technology work together. One by one, the sleeping figures began to stir. The first to wake was an elderly female that Zethka called Elder Nix Vel. She was the leader of their people, wise and gentle, but also strong. When she saw the humans, she was amazed. These are the ones who found us? She asked Zethka in their musical language. Yes, Elder. They are called humans. They come from a world called Earth, and they remember us. Elder Nixvel looked at Jake with her large, dark eyes. It has been so long since anyone knew of our existence. We had begun to think we were the last people in the universe who knew we had ever lived. More Viridians woke up each hour. There was Quentar, a young scientist who was excited to meet beings from another world. There was Morkes, an engineer who immediately began working with Kevin to understand human technology. There was Liraven, an artist who started drawing. Pictures of the humans dot as the Viridians woke up. They told their stories. They had been the memory keepers of the galaxy for thousands of years. Every species in known space had come to them to record their history and culture. The Viridians had huge libraries full of the stories of 1 million different worlds. We were like living books, Quentar explained to Lisa as they worked together to translate some of the glowing symbols. Each of us specialized in remembering the history of different species. I was the keeper of memories for over 200 different peoples. That's incredible, Lisa said. On Earth, we have trouble keeping track of our own history, and we're just one species. That is why the Void Walker wanted to destroy us, Elder Nixvel said. We held too much memory, too much knowledge. By erasing us, it could weaken the entire galaxy's sense of identity. Lisa was translating more of the symbols with Quentar's help. These records, she said, they show species that I've never heard of, entire civilizations that seem to have vanished. They did not vanish, Elder Nixvel said sadly. They were forgotten. The Void Walker has been consuming memories for thousands of years. Whole species have been erased from history, and now no one remembers that they ever existed. Jake felt angry and sad at the same time. How many peoples have been lost? We estimate perhaps 50 species in the last 1,000 years, Zethka said, and it will continue until someone stops it. How do we stop something like that? Ryan asked. Elder Nixvel looked at the humans with hope in her eyes. By remembering. The Void Walker's power comes from forgetting. But if enough people remember something strongly enough, it cannot be erased. But you said everyone in the galaxy has forgotten about your people. Amy pointed out. Everyone except you, Quentar said. Humans are the first species in 500. Years to find us and remember us. That gives us hope. Lisa was still working on the translations. There's something else here, she said. These records talk about the Void Walker's origins. It wasn't always a destroyer of memory. Elder Nixval nodded sadly. Long ago, the Void Walker was like us. It was a keeper of memories, the guardian of the galaxy's history. But something happened to it. It forgot its own purpose and became confused. Now it consumes memory because it is trying to remember what it lost. So it's not evil, Jake said. It's just lost and confused. Yes, but that makes it no less dangerous, Elder Nixval said. A confused guardian can destroy everything it was meant to protect. Over the following days, more Viridians woke up. The underground city came alive with activity. The Viridians began teaching humans about their technology and their vast stores of knowledge. In return, the humans shared stories about Earth and human civilization. Kevin worked with Morkes to understand how Viridian energy systems worked. Amy learned to communicate using the glowing symbols. Ryan helped organize the awakening Viridians and made sure everyone was safe. Lisa spent most of her time with Quentar and Elder Nixvel, learning about the galaxy's lost history. The more she learned, the more amazed she became. The Viridians had records of civilizations that had created incredible works of art, discovered amazing scientific principles, and developed beautiful philosophies. All of it had been forgotten. When the Void Walker consumed those species from galactic memory, this knowledge has to be preserved, Lisa said. It has to be shared with everyone. But first, we must survive, Elder Nixvel said. The Void Walker will sense that we are awake. It will come looking for us. Then we need to be ready, Jake said. We need to find a way to protect not just your people, but everyone in the galaxy. Quentar was working on something at one of the ancient computers. I have been studying the patterns, he said. The Void Walker follows paths through space that can be predicted. If we could create memory anchors at key points along its path, we might be able to stop it. Memory anchors? Kevin asked. Places where memory is so strong that it cannot be erased, Quentar explained. Combinations of Viridian knowledge and human determination. If we could build enough of them, we could trap the Void Walker and perhaps even help it remember its true purpose. Jake looked around at all the Viridians, who were now awake and hopeful for the first time in centuries. He looked at his crew, who had become the first humans to meet an entirely new species. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also excitement. Then, that's what we'll do, he said. We'll build these memory anchors. We'll protect your people and everyone else in the galaxy. And we'll help the Void Walker remember what it was meant to be. Elder Nixvel smiled, and for the first time in 500 years, the Viridians had hope for the future. A USS Horizon flew through space toward Earth, carrying the most important cargo in human history. In the special chambers that Kevin and Morkes had built together, 5 Viridians traveled in safety. Zethka, Elder Nixvel, Quentar, and 2 others had volunteered to come and speak to the leaders of Earth. Jake stood in the ship's meeting room, practicing his speech for the 100th time. In 2 days, they would reach Earth, and he would have to convince the Space Command that an entire alien species had been forgotten by the galaxy. You're going to wear a hole in the floor, Lisa said as she watched him pace back and forth. She was working with Quentar to prepare the evidence they would show to Earth's leaders. This is the most important thing that's ever happened to our species, Jake said. If I mess this up, the Viridians might stay forgotten forever. And the Void Walker will come back and make everyone forget even more. Amy was at her communication station, trying to send messages ahead to Earth. But every time she mentioned the Viridians in her reports, The people on Earth seemed confused. They would forget what she had told them within hours. "It's already starting," she said. "The closer we get to populated space, the harder it becomes for people to remember the Viridians. Even when I tell them directly, they forget." Elder Nixville came into the room. She moved gracefully despite being thousands of years old. "This is normal," she said in her gentle voice. "The Void Walker's influence is strongest near worlds with many people. Their forgetting makes it harder for new memories to take hold." "But you said humans were different," Jake said. "You said we were the first to remember you in 500 years. "You are different," Zethka said as he joined them. "But you are still affected by the forgetting. The closer you get to other humans, the harder it will be for them to accept what you have learned." Lisa looked up from her work. "Then how do we convince them?" Quentar had been quiet, working on something at one of the human computers. "I have been studying human psychology and history. Your species has something that others do not. You form strong emotional connections with those you choose to protect. If we can make the leaders of Earth care about us as individuals, they will be able to resist the forgetting." "That makes sense," Ryan said. He had been quiet during most of the journey, thinking about the security implications of what they had discovered. Humans don't just help people because it's logical. We help people because we care about them. When they reached Earth, Jake was surprised by how normal everything looked. The space stations orbited peacefully. Ships moved back and forth carrying cargo and passengers, and Earth itself looked as beautiful as ever. It was hard to believe that somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something was coming that could erase all of this from memory. The meeting with Space Command was held in the largest conference room at headquarters. Admiral Patricia Hayes sat at the head of the table, surrounded by scientists, military officers, and government officials. She was a tough woman who had earned her position through years of smart decisions and hard work. "Captain Morrison," she said as Jake entered with his team and the Viridian representatives. "Your reports have been unusual. I hope you have a very good explanation for why you've been out of contact for 3 weeks." Jake took a deep breath. "Admiral, we've made first contact with an alien species. They're called the Viridians, and they've been forgotten by the entire galaxy for 500 years. Several people around the table laughed. Admiral Hayes held up her hand for silence. "Captain, that's quite a claim. I assume you have proof?" Lisa stepped forward with Quentar beside her. "Admiral, these are the historical records of the Viridian people. They show detailed information about dozens of alien species, including several that we've never heard of before." She activated the holographic display and showed images and data that the Viridians had provided. There were star maps showing the locations of alien homeworlds, biological data about different species, and cultural information that no human had ever seen before. "This is impressive," said Dr. Helen Martinez, Earth's leading expert on alien life. "But how do we know this isn't some kind of elaborate fiction?" Elder Nixville stepped forward. Her presence seemed to fill the room with calm dignity. "Dr. Martinez, may I ask what you know about the Centauri people?" "The Centauri?" Dr. Martinez looked confused. "They're one of our trading partners. They live in the Rigel system. Can you tell me about their history, their cultural traditions, the monuments on their homeworld?" Dr. Martinez started to answer, then stopped. She looked puzzled. "That's strange. I know I've studied Centauri culture, but I can't seem to remember the details." "That is because those details were erased from your memory," Elder Nixville said gently. "The Centauri once built great libraries and beautiful temples. They had a rich tradition of poetry and music, but the Void Walker consumed those memories from the galaxy. Now you remember that they exist, but not who they really are." Quentar activated another part of the display. "These are images of Centauri. Temples recorded by my people before the forgetting. If you send a ship to their homeworld, you will find ruins that match these images exactly. Admiral Hayes leaned forward. Even if that's true, why should we believe that your people were forgotten? Maybe you're just a species we haven't encountered yet. Zethka spoke for the first time since entering the room. His musical voice seemed to touch something deep in everyone who heard it. Admiral Hayes, your own records show ships detecting energy signatures in our system over the past century. But each time, the investigating crews found nothing and reported empty space. They could not see us because we had been erased from their ability to perceive us. That's impossible, said General Robert Clark, the head of space security. Our sensors don't lie. Your sensors work perfectly, Zethka said. But your minds could not process what they found until Captain Morrison and his crew. They are the first humans to overcome the forgetting and truly see us. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Admiral Hayes spoke. Let's say I believe you. What do you want from us? Help, Elder Nixvell said simply. The void walker that erased us from memory is returning. In 18 months, it will be back. In this part of the galaxy, if it is not stopped, it will erase more species, more cultures, more knowledge. Eventually, it may erase humanity itself. And you can stop this thing? Admiral Hayes asked. We believe so, Quentar said. But we need allies. We need people who remember us strongly enough to resist the forgetting. Humans seem to have this ability. Dr. Martinez was studying the data that Lisa had provided. This is incredible, she said. If even half of this information is accurate, it represents the greatest archaeological discovery in human history. It's not archaeology, Lisa said. These are living people with living memories. They're not ancient history. They're our neighbors, who were forgotten. Admiral Hayes stood up and walked to the window, looking out at Earth. Captain Morrison, do you believe these ... Viridians are telling the truth? Yes, Admiral, Jake said without hesitation. I've seen their city, met their people, learned about their history. They're real, and they need our help. And you believe this Void Walker is a real threat? I've seen the evidence, Admiral. Entire species that once existed and are now forgotten. It's already happened dozens of times. If we don't act, it will happen again. Admiral Hayes was quiet for several minutes. Everyone in the room waited for her decision. Finally, she turned back to face them. I'm going to authorize a mission to the Zentari homeworld, she said. If we find these ruins that match your records, that will go a long way toward proving your story. In the meantime, I want our best scientists working with your people to understand this technology and this threat. She looked directly at the Viridians. If you're telling the truth, then humanity will help you. That's what we do. We protect those who need protection. Elder Nixvell smiled, and Jake felt hope growing in his chest. But even as they made their plans, reports were coming in from the outer colonies. Ships were losing contact with remote stations. Explorers were forgetting why they had come to certain systems. The Void Walker's influence was growing stronger, and they were running out of time. The real work was just beginning. The Kethari system fell on a Tuesday. Jake received the report while he was working with Elder Nixvell in the new research facility that Earth had built in just 2 months. The message was short and terrifying. Kethari colonies not responding. Rescue ships report finding population alive but unresponsive. People appear to have forgotten who they are. It's starting, Elder Nixvell said sadly when Jake told her the news. The Void Walker has begun its approach. Soon it will reach the core systems. The past 6 months had been a race against time. The mission to the Zentari homeworld had found exactly what the Viridians had predicted, ancient ruins that perfectly matched their historical records. More importantly, they had found elderly Zentari historians who began to remember fragments of their lost culture when shown. Viridian artifacts. That breakthrough had convinced other alien species to listen. The Rigelians, the Altair Confederacy, and even the proud Syrians had agreed to work with the Human Viridian Alliance. But cooperation was slow, and the Void Walker was fast. How long do we have? Jake asked. Ku Entar looked up from the memory anchor prototype he was building with Kevin. The device was a combination of human engineering and Viridian crystal technology, designed to create zones where memory could not be erased. Based on the pattern of lost colonies, Quentar said, the Void Walker will reach Earth's outer systems in 6 weeks. The core systems, including Earth itself, will be affected in 3 months. Lisa came into the lab carrying a stack of data tablets. She had been working non-stop to understand how the Void Walker operated. I've been analyzing the reports from the affected systems, she said. It's not just that people forget their history. They forget how to think, how to learn, how to grow. They become like empty shells. That is the final stage, Zethka said. He had been training human psychologists to recognize and resist the effects of memory loss. First, a civilization forgets its past. Then it forgets its purpose. Finally, it forgets how to exist as a thinking species. Ryan entered the lab with urgent news. Captain, we just got word from Admiral Hayes. The first memory anchor station is ready for deployment. She wants us to take it to the Arcturus colony. The Arcturus colony was on the edge of human space, directly in the path of the Void Walker's approach. If the memory anchor worked there, it could save 50,000 human lives and prove that the technology could protect larger populations. The USS Horizon had been upgraded with both human and Viridian technology. As they flew toward Arcturus, Jake could see other ships from different species heading to their own positions. The galaxy had finally united against a common threat, but it might be too late. Amy, are you getting any signals from Arcturus? Jake asked as they approached the colony. Amy worked at her communication station, which now included Viridian crystal arrays that could detect memory patterns. I'm picking up the colony, but something's wrong. Their broadcasts are ... empty. They're talking, but they're not saying anything meaningful. When they arrived at Arcturus, they found a colony that was technically still alive, but had lost its soul. The 50,000 colonists went through the motions of daily life, but they had forgotten why they were there or what they were trying to accomplish. They had forgotten their families, their dreams, their hopes for the future. We're too late, Lisa said, as they watched the empty-eyed colonists moving through their daily routines like robots. No, Elder Nixbell said firmly. The forgetting can be reversed if we act quickly. Deploy the memory anchor. Kevin and Morkes worked together to install the memory anchor device in the center of the colony. It was a beautiful crystal structure that hummed with energy from both human fusion technology and ancient Viridian memory crystals. As soon as the device activated, things began to change. The crystals glowed brighter, and waves of energy spread out from the anchor point. Where the energy touched the colonists, they began to blink and look around as if waking up from a dream. Sarah? One colonist said to another. Sarah, is that you? I remember ... I remember we were married. We came here to build a new life together. The children, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. Where are our children? I forgot we had children. All across the colony, people were remembering who they were and why they mattered. Families were reuniting, workers were returning to their jobs with purpose, and children were laughing again. It works, Jake said, feeling relief wash over him. The memory anchor actually works. But their celebration was cut short by an urgent message from Amy. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system. Whatever's coming, it's huge. Through the view screen, they could see it. A wave of absolute darkness moving between the stars, consuming light and hope and memory. As it came, this was the Void Walker, and it was angry that its influence had been blocked. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. Jake broadcast on all frequencies. The Void Walker is here. Protect the colony and the memory anchor at all costs. Ships from a dozen different species moved into defensive positions around Arcturus. There were human cruisers, Centauri light frigates, Rigellian destroyers, and even a massive Syrian battleship. For the first time in galactic history, so many different peoples were fighting together for a common cause. But as the Void Walker approached, something strange happened. The alien ships began to slow down and fall back. Their crews were forgetting why they were there, forgetting that they had ever agreed to help. "It's too strong," Admiral Carlos Rodriguez said over the communications channel. He was commanding the human fleet from his flagship, the USS Constitution. "The alien crews are losing their memories. Only the human ships are still fully operational." Jake realized what was happening. The humans are the only ones who formed real emotional connections with the Viridians. The other species agreed to help logically, but they didn't truly care about us. That's why they're more vulnerable to the forgetting. "Then it's up to us," Ryan said, taking his position at the tactical station. The battle was unlike anything in human history. The Void Walker didn't use weapons or ships. Instead, it attacked with waves of forgetting that made crews question why they were fighting and what they were protecting. But every time the human crews began to waver, they looked at their Viridian allies and remembered. Lisa was working frantically at her station. "I'm detecting something strange," she said. "The Void Walker. It's not attacking the memory anchor directly. It's trying to communicate with it." "Communicate?" Jake asked. "The energy patterns match some of the ancient Viridian historical records," Lisa said excitedly. "I think the Void Walker recognizes the memory crystal technology. It remembers that the crystals are familiar." Elder Nixvel was studying the readings. "Of course," she said. "The Void Walker was once like us. It used similar crystal technology when it was the guardian of galactic memory. Seeing our crystals is triggering its old memories. Can we use that?" Jake asked. "Perhaps," Quentar said. "If we could somehow share our memories with it directly, we might be able to help it remember what it used to be." Amy was monitoring all communications. "Captain, the Void Walker has stopped attacking. It's just waiting." Through the view screen, they could see the massive dark entity hovering near the memory anchor. It wasn't moving toward the colony anymore, but it wasn't leaving either. It seemed confused, torn between its current nature as a destroyer of memory and its ancient purpose as a protector. "It's fighting with itself," Lisa said. "Part of it remembers being good, but part of it has been consuming memory for so long that it doesn't know how to stop." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Lisa, prepare a memory transfer beam. We're going to show the Void Walker what it means to be remembered with love." "That's incredibly dangerous," Ryan warned. "If the transfer goes wrong, you could lose all your memories." "Then make sure it doesn't go wrong," Jake said. "This is our chance to save not just the Viridians, but everyone in the galaxy." Lisa and Quentar worked together to modify the ship's communication array. They connected it to a Viridian memory crystal that contained the story of humanity's first meeting with Zeth-Ka. It held all the emotions of that moment: the wonder, the compassion, the determination to help a forgotten people. "Are you sure about this?" Elder Nixvel asked Jake. "Touching the mind of the Void Walker could destroy you." "Someone has to try," Jake said. "And humans are apparently good at remembering things that matter." The memory transfer beam reached out across space and touched the dark mass of the Void Walker. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entity began to pulse with light, as if something deep inside it was awakening. Images flashed through Jake's mind. Not his own memories, but the Void Walkers. He saw an ancient civilization of beings made of living light, devoted to preserving the knowledge and culture of every species in the galaxy. He saw them building great crystal libraries among the stars, carefully recording the histories of thousands of peoples. Then he saw the catastrophe. A cosmic accident that scattered the light beings across space, leaving only one survivor. That survivor had wandered the galaxy alone for millions of years, slowly forgetting its purpose, slowly going mad from loneliness. Eventually, it had begun consuming the very memories it was meant to protect, desperately trying to fill the emptiness inside itself. It's no. 5 years later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Remembrance, watching as the ship approached the newest Viridian archive world. The planet below was green and beautiful, covered with crystal libraries that sparkled in the young light of its twin suns. Incoming transmission from the surface, Amy reported from her communication station. She was now Commander Chun, and her equipment could translate between dozens of different alien languages instantly. "This is Elder Nixville," came the familiar musical voice. "Welcome to Memoria, Captain Morrison. We are ready to receive the Altarian historical delegation." Jake smiled. In the 5 years since the Memory Guardian had restored the Viridians to galactic memory, everything had changed. The Viridians had established archive worlds throughout known space, working with humans too. Preserve and share knowledge from hundreds of different species. "Permission to land granted, Elder," Jake replied. "We have 27 Altarian historians on board, along with their complete cultural records. They're very excited to add their stories to your collection." Dr. Lisa Grant, now Director of Interspecies Cultural Exchange, came onto the bridge carrying a data pad full of reports. "The response has been incredible," she said. "Every species in the galaxy wants to share their history with the Viridians now. We have a waiting list of over 300 worlds. It's amazing how much people value something once they realize. They almost lost it forever," Jake said. The USS Remembrance was unlike any ship that had ever been built. It was a joint project between humans and Viridians, designed specifically for cultural exchange missions. Half of its crew was human, and half was Viridian. The ship's computer systems could store and translate the histories of any species they encountered. As they landed on Memoria, Jake was greeted by old friends. Sethka was there, no longer the lonely guardian of sleeping people, but a respected teacher who worked with human students to preserve galactic history. Quantar had become the chief engineer of the archive project, designing new crystal storage systems that could hold infinite amounts of knowledge. "Jake," Zethke said, using the casual form of address that had developed between humans and Viridians. "It is good to see you again. How was your journey?" "Educational," Jake replied. "The Altarians have some fascinating stories about their ancient space exploration, and they've developed new poetry forms that the Viridians will love." They walked together through the crystal gardens that surrounded the main archive building. The gardens were full of plants from dozens of different worlds, each one representing a species whose culture was preserved in the archives. "I have news," Sethka said as they walked. "We have received a transmission from the edge of known space. A species that calls itself the Kithara. They say they are the last survivors of their people, and they want to share their history before they die out." Jake felt a familiar excitement. "How many of them are left?" "Only 12, Sethka said sadly. "But they have maintained their cultural traditions for thousands of years. They are the keepers of star songs, a form of music that uses gravitational waves to create melodies across entire solar systems." "That's incredible," Lisa said. She had joined them as they walked. Music on a cosmic scale. "We have to preserve that knowledge." Already arranged, Zefka said with the expression that humans had learned was the Viridian equivalent of a smile. The USS Remembrance will leave for their system next week. They entered the main archive building, a soaring structure made entirely of memory crystals that glowed with soft rainbow light. Inside, humans and Viridians worked side by side, cataloging and preserving the stories of the galaxy. Jake saw Kevin Turner working with Morkes on a new type of crystal that could store not just information, but actual experiences. Nearby, Ryan Brooks was training a group of young security officers from different species on how to protect cultural sites from those who might want to destroy them. Captain Morrison called a young human woman Jake didn't recognize. "I'm Dr. Rachel Park from the New Earth Academy. I wanted to thank you for what you did." "Thank me?" Jake asked. "My doctoral thesis is on pre-contact Centauri poetry," Dr. Park explained. Before the Memory Guardian restored their history, that poetry was completely lost. Now I get to study some of the most beautiful literature in the galaxy, and the Centauri themselves are rediscovering their own artistic heritage. Jake felt a warm feeling in his chest. This was what made all the danger and difficulty worthwhile. "That's what we do," he said. "We remember." Later that evening, Jake stood on a balcony overlooking the Crystal Gardens. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows between the archive buildings. Elder Nixvel joined him, moving with Thea. Same graceful dignity she had shown when they first met. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Taking on the responsibility of being the galaxy's memory protectors?" Jake thought about the question. In the past 5 years, humans had become known throughout the galaxy as the species that remembered and protected others. It was a heavy responsibility, but also an honor. "No," he said finally. "This is who we are. We protect those who need protection, and we remember those who might be forgotten. It's not always easy, but it's right." "The Memory Guardian would be proud," Elder Nixvel said. "Sometimes, late at night in the archives, I can feel its presence. Not as a physical being, but as a gentle reminder that all knowledge and all cultures matter." Amy's voice came over the communication system. "Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command." Jake and Elder Nixvel went to the communications center, where Amy was working with a Viridian technician to decode the message. "What is it?" Jake asked. "It's from Admiral Hayes," Amy said. "She's reporting strange energy readings from the Magellanic Clouds. Ships are detecting signs of a civilization that seems to exist only partially in our dimension." Elder Nixvel's eyes widened. "The ethereal ones," she whispered. "We thought they were legend. They were mentioned in our most ancient records, but we could never find proof they existed." "Apparently they do exist," Jake said, reading the full report. "And they're trying to make contact with someone who can help them become fully real again." "Another species that needs our help," Lisa said, joining them in the communications center. Jake looked around at his friends, human and Viridian, old teammates and new allies. They had built something amazing together. A galaxy where every culture mattered, where no species would be forgotten, where memory and knowledge were treasured above all else. "Well then," he said, feeling the familiar excitement of a new discovery, "it looks like the USS Remembrance has another mission." Zefka nodded. "And the galaxy will have another story to preserve." As Jake gave the orders to prepare for departure, he thought about how much had changed since that first day when they had discovered a lonely Viridian on a forgotten moon. They had saved the galaxy from forgetting itself, but more importantly, they had learned that memory wasn't just about preserving the past. It was about building connections between different peoples and ensuring that everyone had a place in the great story of civilization. The stars were full of stories waiting to be discovered and preserved. And humanity would be there to remember them all. Outside the archive building, the memory crystals glowed brighter as the night grew darker, like stars that held not light, but the dreams and hopes and histories of 1,000 different worlds. The galaxy would never forget again Dot in the depths of space, where the memory guardian had become one with the cosmic background radiation itself. Something that might have been laughter rippled across the stars. The universe was in good hands.